to our workshop today. We're part of the Lillian Lodge Copenhagen Center for the Advancement of Women in Communication. And here at Stevens, we're a satellite location, but we've also got Florida International University. Marymount University is a satellite location as well as Rowan University. So they're here in the audience as well, and shout out to them. Big shout out to Bethany Irons, our director of the Copenhagen Center here at Stevens. She is manning the buttons on the Zoom. I am the assistant director of the Copenhagen Center satellite office here and at Stevens College. And I'm actually an alum of Stevens of 2010 in digital filmmaking, which you'll hear referred to as DFM in this talk. Steph Borkland, our program chair, is in the audience today, or she should be soon, along with our president, Diane Lynch. So applause for them. And thank you again for joining us today, whoever you may be, whether you're affiliated with the university or you just happened upon this workshop. I brought up the title of The Evolution of Networking, Strengthening Your Connections, because I really felt like in today's market where students and women in particular are trying to advance their careers, the best way that I've really seen that happen is through networking. So today we've got Tennessee Martin, also referred to as Ten, and Nicole Martin, also referred to as Nikki, of no relation to each other, but they're both DFM graduates as well, and we were here at the same time. I will let them share what they're up to a little bit later. But what I wanted to talk about is what this workshop is about, and what all Copenhagen workshops are about is the advancement of women. And yes, it's in communication, but I feel like communication is super broad, right? Our focusing on networking today is what I saw as a relevant topic to today's students, soon-to-be graduates, and some of whom are in the audience today and are really looking forward for that next thing for their careers. Two people that I know really carved their own paths specifically by just like jumping and going to LA are here with us today. And I'm excited for you to hear their perspectives on when they started out versus now too. What I love about Stevens is we have a film program. We're a women's college as well. So this is a really male dominated industry where I feel like women are trying to break in and get our numbers up. I looked up some statistics for womeninhollywood.com, and it says that while we account for 50% of all moviegoers, of the top 100 grossing films of 2019, women represented 10.7% of directors, 19.4% of writers, and 24.3% of producers. Our aim through these and other workshops are to change those numbers, right? So we're going to open this up for questions at the very end. There will be a Q&A. You can raise your hand if you want to. Bethany will kind of get you in queue if you actually want to be on video. But right now, I'd like to just like kick it off and talk to Ten and Nikki and have them kind of share with you what they're doing now. So let's just go ahead and start. Ten, I see you're unmuted, so let's just start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Tennessee Martin. I am a writer, producer in Los Angeles. I also work in development at Legendary Television. So I graduated from Stevens in 2011. As Jim mentioned, I was a film major and an art minor. So a very creative minded person. And it's interesting. I don't think I really tapped into that until I got to Stevens, which was a really special thing. So I graduated in 2011. I moved out to LA and began my career. And a lot of it has actually been built on networking. So I'm excited to share more about that with you all.
Awesome, thanks. And Nikki, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Nicole, or Nikki. I kind of have an unusual history a little bit. So I was at Stevens for my first year and a half, I believe it was. And then I had a summer internship with the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences out in Los Angeles. And from there, when I came back, Stevens had kind of gone through a little bit of shift with everything kind of going down a bit. So, what was that? What was the age that was called back then in 2008? The recessions. Yes. So with the recession, there wasn't actually any classes for me to take. And so I was trying to figure out what to do if I was going to take a semester off. And then I think 2 days after, I got a call from someone I worked with out there saying, hey, do you have time to hop on a show? So I was like, okay, I'll take a semester off and go work on a show. And then I worked show to show to show to show ever since. And I worked with Carrie Yost at Stevens to complete my degree, and then went on to pursue a master's degree with Stevens as well.
Awesome. I love it. You had to go to Stevens. You loved it so much you went twice, right? So I love it. We have an MFA program in screenwriting, which is amazing as well. Let's have you guys talk about like, why did you choose film? You know, like what made you kind of like, what was the genesis of that moment, you know? Nikki, go ahead, since you're at.
Well, they say a picture says 1,000 words, so moving pictures can say even more. And I had a photography background working for a photography studio throughout high school. And my goal was to work for National Geographic and do videography and really show the stories of these people. So that's what got me into film, is finding that the moving stories of people.
That's awesome. And then 10, I think you kind of had a little bit of a Stevens moment there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say I didn't really, film found me, if I'm being totally honest. I was a creative writing major at Stevens. I had always grown up writing in different forms, poetry contests, long form and spiral bound notebooks, writing novels, that sort of thing. And when I got to Stevens, it was really the place where I discovered how to use my passion for writing to tell meaningful stories that, as Nikki just said, you know, can really say 1,000 words just by what you put on a screen. And that was fascinating to me because it really tied in my passion for writing, and you know, also with my passion for art, because there is so much art in filmmaking. Right. So that was sort of my journey to find it. But then once, you know, I discovered the major, Stevens is really great about the sense that lets you dive into filmmaking your freshman year. And so immediately, like, it clicked. I knew I was home.
That's awesome. Kind of transitioning to now, what are you doing now? And then Nikki, if you can kind of also talk about what you're doing now, because 10 just recently kind of also changed. So if you'll talk about a little bit where you were a little bit ago to just now.
Yeah. Let's see. So the quick version is you know, I made my way through many different types of jobs in the industry. I worked in unscripted as a production assistant. I made it to Warner Brothers at the studio, where I worked in television production. From there, I landed in a writer's room where I was support staff on a show called Lucifer for 3 seasons. I left Lucifer and you know, did a show with David Ayer, and then shot a film with David Ayer, and then left that and got into development, which really starts bringing me to sort of where I am currently. I worked in development at Stars. I fell in love with it. I got promoted onto the desk of the president of television. And I've gone from company to company with him over the last 3.5 to 4 years. We went from Stars to Apple TV, where he was the head of operations. And we also consulted on productions. And then now, as of this past September, we are at Legendary Television in development. It's interesting because I sort of live 2 lives to a degree. I have 2 full-time jobs. So that is my trajectory in development. Meanwhile, I'm also a writer and producer in my free time, as I like to put it, which is not free. But I have also been on a trajectory of, I was in a writing program in 2020. I got repped in 2019. I've been, you know, currently up for rewrite for a feature for HBO Max, and I'm developing a queer Christmas feature that We may have some good news about coming very soon, but my short film Hangry is currently on the festival circuit, and I will be showing it at Cinema Sisters Lesbian Film Festival in Paducah, Kentucky for Memorial Day weekend. So a lot of really awesome things happening.
I love it. I love it. And Nikki, like I feel like you've got a list just as long, you know?
Yeah, I feel like when I got to LA, now looking back at it, I feel like I almost jumped in too hard because I was just going from show to show to show. I started off with TNT TBS, working on some shows there, and then went from the production show side and post-production into the network side. So then I was a network executive for TNT TBS for a bit, managing a bunch of shows like Rizzoli and Isles, and the post-production process of those shows and the international distribution of those shows and the archivalness of those shows. And then from there, I was doing so much strategy that I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. So then I kind of shifted toward a CBS, and I went to work with Pop TV on the research and strategy side. And then I was there for about 5-6 years. And then going through all the mergers, we were with Stars for a bit. Then the final merger with Viacom kind of like disintegrated the company in a way. And it also was a great opportunity for me to put a new perspective in mind of what I wanted for my career and my career trajectory. So I took a step back, I took a breather, I focused on my skill set, and I moved back home to Wisconsin for a little bit to be with family, and then happened upon this job here at Discover Media Works, which uses a lot more of my skill set in analytics and strategy. So right now I am the head of analytics and digital growth for the company. And I also oversee one of our brands called Discover Wisconsin, which is the nation's longest running travel tourism show.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. You guys, I think the emphasis like is on the fact that you went from place to place, but the reality is that this is where we get into the topic, right? Like it's through networking that you got those jobs. So can you kind of expound a little bit more on, I guess let's start with the beginning, really, in the juncture of you guys starting your careers out there. Like, what did you kind of start networking on a grassroots level?
Well, Nikki, I'm going to jump in here because I will forever owe you, and I know that she knows where this is going. Very early in my career, I was living out here. I had gone through a breakup and immediately needed a place to live. I wound up living with Nikki for about 2 weeks. She let me push aside her kitchen table and blow up my air mattress right there in her kitchen / living room, because LA, and helped me negotiate for a kitchen table when I moved. I mean, Nikki and I sat side by side when we graduated at Stevens. So if you want to go back to the very heart of networking, it begins that far back, right? But for me, I'd say almost all of my jobs have been through networking, either because someone carried me along to the next phase, or because I made a phone call to an executive covering a show who put me in touch with a production coordinator who read my resume. I mean, I've moved through this industry based on networking, and I think so many people are confused about what that means. Right? Networking isn't just walking into a room and having a conversation. Networking is following up. It's building a relationship. It's being able to, give as much as you take in these relationships. So my entire career has sort of been founded and navigated through meaningful networking.
That's amazing.
And I think,
yeah, go ahead, Nikki. Sorry.
I feel, Ten, you bring up such a great point about how networking isn't just specifically about your work, that it is about the community that you build when you're out there. And I didn't really realize that because I was kind of felt out there on my own a little bit for a while. And then when people started coming from Stevens, and I was realizing this is that community I was missing when I was out there. As far as networking, traditionally, I feel I'm the worst at that. So especially when I started off, I would let my work do the work for me, and people would just start talking about how almost crazy I was with my work ethic and how I'd always go above and beyond. So I figured for me, that was how I was able to start off my networking when I didn't have the confidence to actually go to these bigger meetings and meet people face to face. They just heard about me through my work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that you do too, Ten, just because I have a more intimate knowledge, I guess, of those things, because I met up with you one time in LA. But you've done some alum, I think it's also seeking out other alums that aren't necessarily within your own program. Can you kind of talk about that and, maybe even a little bit about Don Wells?
Yeah, I would say some networking is an understatement when it comes to Stevens and the alum. I served on the alumni board for 7 years. I have, hosted many Stevens events at my home. I've helped organize a lot of these events, and for me, it is a sense of community, right, Nikki? It's making sure that you feel at home wherever you are and helping other people to do the same. But it's also, this is how we all move forward. One person can only get so far on their own. Collectively, we can move mountains, right? And that's my approach to networking, because at the end of the day, who you choose to spend time with, that matters. And it doesn't have to be transactional, but it can be the thing that you rely on, something that supports you throughout your life. So Stevens has been that for me. Absolutely. It was the foundation of where I learned how to network. It was the foundation of where I learned the importance of a network. 3 days after I moved to Los Angeles, I was at a Stevens networking event at the Beverly Hills Country Club. And when I mean fresh off the farm, I was in a dress, if you can imagine. I had on my flats. I walked in, and from across the room, I see Don Wells, who everyone knows and knew was one of our most well-known alum and happened to be in my industry. So I just beelined over there with my, little Southern accent and struck up a conversation. And she was the kindest person and so vibrant and funny and just you wanted to be around her. And I did. And I asked her, I was like, look, I'm looking for a job. And she said, I'm looking for an assistant. And I literally got hired into my first job 3 days after arriving in Los Angeles because of my Stevens network, right? And because having this network, she knew that she could rely on me because I was Stevens, right? And that's the quality of a network. That's the advantage of being baked into a network. And so I got that job and I worked with her. But like Nikki said, it's so much more than just work. Right? It's about your personal development, your personal relationships. I spent every Thanksgiving at Dawn Wells' house because she knew I didn't have family here. When I got into a sticky situation where, I didn't know how to navigate, I called Dawn and she walked me through it because she had navigated our industry, 40 years prior and had been for that long. And so, I've made some of my closest relationships through Stevens. But that's also what motivates me to sort of give back to the next generation is I want to make sure that the pipeline is built for them to have the same networking experience and to be able to navigate their careers and their lives with the support needed in that same way.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, I've also worked in the film industry as well. I think what's great about Stevens is that we're a women's college, so we're naturally centric to be around each other and support each other. For other universities and colleges that are co-ed, there's still there's still a mechanism that kind of needs to be in place, right, for women to band together and to support one another and pull one another up. What I do want to kind of talk about though is shifting it that you guys are kind of in a really male dominated field. And how have you seen like women specifically or men assist, with those people that need the pulling up?
Nikki, you want to tackle first?
Let's start with a little bit. I had an interesting conversation recently at my work about this as well. So like you said, this topic is in the air around the universe right now. And one of the things that we were talking about was finding a key thing, especially for me, starting in the industry, even out in LA, and still here too, is finding those key male allies. Of if you know you're going into a situation where you might feel that you're being overlooked or overrun or talked over, is finding those male allies in a way that they can either pass the table to you or help speak your voice, and help give you that presence that other people might not be as willing to offer. So that's been a huge help.
It's kind of handing you the microphone, essentially. You've got your own voice and they're giving you the speaker, essentially, right? I think that's awesome. What are ways that you guys have within your fields right now, as in the places that you're working, where they're doing some bit of DEI and that those kinds of things, like where you can see movements happening?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. I was just on our Legendary Voices committee meeting yesterday. So along with my Stevens network, I've actually found really meaningful networking through the employee resource groups that are provided at a lot of corporations. So I served on the Pride board at Stars. I served on the Apple ERG for the studio and streamer. And then I also here at Legendary am now serving on the Legendary Voices, which is our DEI group there. And, it's pretty powerful work. You actually get to be in a room where you're talking about how to improve the entire infrastructure of the organization that you are a part of, right? So I'm currently in charge of helping organize a speaker committee, a lot like the panel that we're having right now, which is why I often, if not always, say yes to panels, because I do this work as well, where I'm sourcing speakers too. We're also having conversations about, diversity in our shows on screen, inclusion, not only in the workplace, but how we represent ourselves to the world, right? So I do think that there's a huge shift towards DEI happening in entertainment. I think there's also a level of superficiality with it right now too, where it's like everyone says that they want that, but not everyone is doing the meaningful work to get it. Right. So I think it's hard to sort of break through sometimes who's actually doing what, but that's why it's important to get involved. And through these relationships that I'm building in these organizations, it's also key networking. So I was going to bring that up earlier too, right? In the same way that I have my Stevens network, I have built other networks through often philanthropy and giving back.
That's really cool. I mean, networking happens on all kinds of different levels, and the DEI, I totally understand. I think it's a really just hard thing for everyone to just navigate. I think there's this movement to do more, and to know that you need to do more, but to also just appreciate that people are trying. I think that that's the other part that giving people grace in these moments. Shifting kind of topics, or not topics per se, but just kind of shifting into the now. What are kind of the newer versions? One of the things we were talking about is Clubhouse. If anybody does or doesn't know about it, it was kind of like this thing where you had to be invited, and there were people that would be speakers and they could be pulled up to the stage. It's all kind of audio based and whatnot. But Nikki, can you kind of talk about some of the things like finding your job now, just more specifics on how you got it, or more recently what you've worked on?
Yeah, I think in part too with networking and bringing that into the current age, I don't use Clubhouse, but I use LinkedIn a lot. And I think the biggest thing I found that works, similar to what Ten was saying, is you find a group where it's not there to network to try to see how you can better each other. It's usually people coming together for a different common goal. And that's what builds a stronger networking from what I've experienced. So I try to find people on LinkedIn that are pursuing a common goal that I have on the side or a question that I have burning in my brain. I try to find those people and network with them so we can build solutions together. So that's what I've been kind of doing more of. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then Ten, have you, I mean, I know Clubhouse, but are there any kind of newer tools that you feel like you've heard of?
I mean, it's interesting when we say like newer. I think that there is value to any connections that you can make that you wouldn't have made elsewhere, right? Like one of my earliest internships I got through Twitter because I was tweeting at a producer about their show. And I was like, I love your show. I love what you're doing. He tweeted back. We DM'd. We kept in touch over
When
a
you
few
send
months.
me, and I will send it to you.
What? And so we DM'd, and then when I moved to LA, he is actually the one that put me in touch with the internship that I landed, and then he hired me into reality TV after that. So, that's Twitter. That was a while back. I'd say Instagram, actually, I sourced IP, so intellectual property, around the life rights of a cowboy that I wrote a project on through Instagram. I just read an article about them, reached out on Instagram, messaged them, and then it started a 3-year journey, right? In LA, we have things like Women in Film. We have organizations like that. I also use LinkedIn a lot. But in terms of, platforms that are specific to networking, I'm not really involved in as many because frankly, I'm sort of exhausted by digital media at this point. I coming out of the last couple of years have really craved human interaction. So whatever I can do with people together, like that's where I want to be.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I've really started to really appreciate silence like, more than anything in the world, like in the past couple of years. So yeah. I'm with you. One of the things that I really feel like, we can talk about networking all day. We can talk about the steps that you need to do, but really a lot of it has to do with confidence. So just without even putting my own thoughts into your head, what is that word and how you network really play hand in hand?
Yeah, confidence is such like a multi-layered, multifaceted concept. It's not just, oh, I feel proud about myself, so I'm going to barge into any room. Most of it I find is just showing up. So if there's an opportunity there, if you're even just there, whether if you're going to try to meet someone or not, just showing up is half the battle. And then when you get there, it's seeing, what is the main purpose of what you can get from it? Are you there just to observe and absorb, which is totally fine? And then everything else that happens after that is just a cherry on top. If you actually meet and say hi to someone. And it used to be like 6 degrees of separation, but now I feel like it's way, way less than that. So crazy less. So it's like even just saying hi to anybody, there's bound to be some sort of connection to someone that you already know or a project that you know about. So a lot of confidence is just putting on your shoes and getting there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's having the support of a good wing woman too, I think is the other part to it, right? So someone that is outgoing and gregarious and whatnot. Ten, do you have thoughts? I know you have thoughts on confidence. So please feel free to share.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, confidence probably in my earlier years wasn't rooted in the same place as it is now. For me now, confidence is why not, right? If anything can happen to anyone, why not you? Why not now? Having that belief that why not, right? So take that shot, do that thing, speak to that person. You know, my work has a mentorship program. So naturally, I signed up because I love putting myself in situations where I can continue to grow and learn and network, right? So we got to select the top 3 people that we would want to be paired with. And I knew from the moment I read it, I wanted to be paired with Mary Parent, who is our worldwide vice chair of production. She's also one of the producers of Dune. So if you watched Dune, that's Mary's work. I mean, when I say that this woman is brilliant and everyone knew, I did as well. So I signed up and I wrote in my email, I was like, Mary Parent, #1, big caps, right? And then my other people. And then I called HR and I was like, so by the way, I just submitted, wanted to let you know, I really, really, really want to be paired with Mary. And then I found a second touch point who I also knew was kind of involved with the selection process. And so I mentioned to them, I really wanted to be paired with Mary. And then I also happened to speak to her coordinator who I had interned with 10 years prior. And I was like, yeah, so signed up for the mentorship, really want to be paired with Mary. I don't know if I willed it in, I guess I willed it into existence, and that is confidence, right? It's being willing to go after the thing that you really want and asking for it. So much of confidence is just being willing to ask, using your voice, walking into the room, as Nikki said, that really is the first step of confidence. And if you can take that first step, the rest will come.
Yeah, one of the things that I've told some of our students here is that a man can walk into a room and he'll say, excuse me, as he walks around. A woman will walk into a room and say, I'm sorry. So we have to stop apologizing for taking up space and existing. You know, we deserve this space. We have a lot of self-worth. And I think that's where my version of confidence, and where I didn't want to put it into your mouth, but my version of confidence is having the self-worth. And I really think it's really important for all women to work on that, to do what you can, to be, like Ten said, 10 should be for tenacious, by the way. I just thought of that. So that's your new nickname in my mind.
Thank you.
But yeah, we just got to really help each other. So one thing that I do want to say is we're kind of getting a little bit towards the other half of the hour, or we're in it. So if you have any questions for them, please feel free to put it into the chat and we can ask them at the end of this. But I wanted to say, like, speaking on confidence, or speaking from people that might not have it, what advice would you give to women in your industry, or just in general that may be in these types of industries that might be more male dominated or whatnot?
Yeah, like I said, you can move more mountains together. So don't be afraid to reach out. I've found more often than not that women are actually very willing to help each other. I've run into a few occasions where I think that there's still some of this like old school mentality of there's only room for like one of us, so it has to be me. I don't think that we're in the same age, right? I think that we can all help each other grow and learn and break those ceilings, right? Break down those barriers. And the only way we can do that is if we all know that we exist, that each other exists. So reach out and ask that question, or ask for that thing that you want. Have that confidence.
Nikki?
Yeah, definitely. I would say for me, what I often do is I kind of default to observation. So I would often try to either get a seat where I could watch someone, a strong female leader, and see how she handles certain situations, and then try to mimic that, because knowing, especially where we're at, we are going to end up being the only woman in a room of men. So we know that that is going to happen at some point in our lives. So if I'm able to watch and observe how people handle certain situations with respect and with grace and with authority, those are the key things that I hold on to.
And those
And
are
then
the
there's
key differences between Nikki and I.
yeah, and then also there's the whole like cheating system you can do, like the fake it till you make it. So I would use a lot of, I did a lot of study on body language. So when I didn't feel that inner confidence, I knew how to sit a certain way in a meeting that projected that I was very confident, or to stand a certain way that projected that I was confident, even if I didn't feel it inside.
I feel like I'm always learning from Nikki. Like I'm like always learning.
I feel I'm learning from you.
Well, why do you think you guys are here on this panel, guys? But I just love that. I mean, what are the other things, like, let's go beyond the now or your job, you know, what are the things that you guys are doing that you're inspired by or that are fun kind of outside of your world?
I produce a drag fundraiser every year. It started as a small thing that I did with two entertainment studios, and it has since grown into something that now we have 6 entertainment sponsors and just raised $25,000. So that is something that I have done with a community and a network, right, that has really inspired me and kept me going, and all the money that we raise goes to scholarships for queer youth. And I was actually able to then send the link to the scholarship application to Steph, and I was like, hey, if we have any students who want to apply, like, this is available. And so that inspires me, the direct ability to impact other people and give back. All the hard work that we do, that's the fun stuff.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nikki, do you have other things beyond that you've got? Because you're a wealth of advice.
Oh, a little bit. That is the fun stuff, 10, is like giving back and finding the best ways to like help other people and help support communities. And that's one of the things I love about moving back to Wisconsin, is I kind of got out of the haze of Hollywood, and now I'm actually back to more of my Stevens days, where I'm finding those deeper stories and I'm talking about the community and helping to connect businesses together. One of the things I'm doing on the side, oh, I see in the chat, Michelle's in Milwaukee, woo! One of the things I do on the side, along with helping other, like the community and help growing it and building it, is a lot of our companies are struggling with how to adjust, even with including more women in certain like key roles, or how to do all of the DEI and how to approach certain things. And we have a lot of marginalized groups throughout Wisconsin, and how can they talk about and kind of target those consumers with respect and rather than stereotypes. So there's a lot of sensitivity that I've been working with other companies here as well. So that's been really great, knowing that I'm helping others who are then going to help other people.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just the common theme, right? Is that we have to support one another. Here at Stevens, I'm also the director of the agency, which is part of the comm design department. And I got a little badge last semester that was for support. But that's really what this is that we really have to band together and support one another and grow one another's careers, advancement, and whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's communication or beyond. So kind of touching on that, what are your guys' hopes for the future? And then we'll open it up to a chat. So please feel free to add that.
Nikki, you want to go?
Oh, let's see here. Hopes for the future. That is a very heavy question. I feel
Even
like
if it's just yours.
I feel like, especially when I was in LA, I was so targeted and I had 5 key goals that I wanted to achieve. One of them I didn't get, so I swapped it out with something else. And I readjusted to focus what is the biggest impact for myself and for my life, and taking out what I think everyone else is thinking I should be doing and trying to find out what does my heart and soul say that I want to do to impact this world, and what legacy do I want to leave behind. So I don't have the exact roadmap of what that's going to bring for the future, but I know that right now I have a stronger compass than what I did before, and that will still steer me in the right direction.
Again, you're so like strategic. I love it. I'm an aspiring writer producer, and that's what I want to do full time. So for me, my goals are significantly career based. I want to be writing full time. I want to tell stories full time, and I want to help other historically, you know, ignored communities do the same, right? There's so much work left to do, and I'm excited to be here to do that work.
Awesome. Well, I just kind of want to go back to the beginning. I love that one. I feel like we've kind of touched on all the topics. I think it's been amazing for you guys to be here, and thank you for joining us today, Tennessee and Nikki. Like, I loved hearing everything that you had to say. We want to continue to follow your guys' journeys. Is there another way for people to follow yours, if you so choose to share that with us?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Tennessee Martin. That would be the key one. I think that's really the only thing I tend to update. And LinkedIn, Tennessee Martin.
And then Nikki, we know you're on LinkedIn all the time.
Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
Just my final question, for the graduates that are graduating in May or June, depending upon where you are, what would you like to say to kind of them as they start their new kind of path or journey, if you could be their keynote speaker?
Oh, Ten, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, I mean, use your alumni network. That's the first, easiest place for you to begin your networking journey, right? And Diane Lynch gave me some really great advice when I was first beginning, which was find where you want to be and the rest will follow. And it was absolutely true. So find that place that you want to move to or go to, tap into that network. You can do it through Stevens, you can do it through any of your other connections, but start building your network the moment that you really get your sights set, because that's going to help pull you into the direction you want to be.
That's beautiful. And I would add to that and say, while you're doing that, also never forget your beginnings, your own beginnings, and your own challenges that you have already overcome. Whenever I would get to a situation that I would say, I don't know if I can do this, I would think back to when I took AP Physics in high school, and I was the only junior in the all senior class, and I beat out half the class, and I thought that that was going to kill me when I was in it. So just thinking back upon that success makes me think, oh, this next thing, that's way easier. Like, it's not as big of a challenge as it seems.
Make sure you pay it forward too, right? Because one day you're going to be sitting in the seats where we are sitting right now, and show up for your network.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like, in my other title that we're doing is we're developing a website to kind of share our Stevens students with their network, and I think it's amazing advice. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions in the chat, or anybody want to raise their hand and ask them a question, because the floor is open? I'm like, I don't see any though. Oh, okay. Steph said you two are the best.
Oh, we
No.
love you, Steph.
Shout out to Steph Portland, the DFM Digital Filmmaking Program Chair here at Stevens. If you're interested in film, we've got a program there.
So
All right, so it kind of looks like.
I'm gonna raise
we
my
might not
hand.
Dr. Willie had, or excuse me, was President Lynch?
yeah, I would, instead of raising my hand, I just raised my hand. First of all, thank you all. Thank all three of you. So proud of all of you and so proud that you're Stevens. But this is a comment as much as a question, but then I have a follow-up question. So one of the most striking things that I heard, and there were lots of them, and a takeaway message for every one of our students, well, every one of our students, is that confidence is a feeling, but it's more important, it's an action. What you both said was you put on your shoes and you go out there and you do it. You observe, you absorb, you're active in the moment, in your space, but you also show up, that you actually, why not me? Why not now? You just do it. And so often our students think of confidence as I feel it and therefore I can do it, instead of I'll do it and therefore I will feel it. So give us an example, because I'm taking copious notes. I have 55 sticky notes here. Give us an example, please, each of you, of that moment when you didn't feel it. And 10, I think you always feel it, but that you didn't feel it, right? And Nikki, when you talk about that, like posture and body language, it's all about the doing of that creates confidence, again, instead of the other way around. But give us an example of when you didn't feel it, you just didn't, you made yourself do it anyway, and you walked out of that moment thinking, yes. So I can repeat the stories to the students who come in here and like, I don't know. Like, let me tell you a story about Nikki and 10.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of my career has been based in television, and that goes for writing, just because that was where I sort of got my basis of knowledge, but I also wanted to be in film, though I didn't have as much direct experience in that medium. And so I got tapped to potentially rewrite this HBO Max feature, right? The production company reached out to my agent and sent along the script and asked if I'd read and to see what my thoughts were. And I loved the story and I loved the characters, and I immediately could see like what I would do differently. But I had this deep seated fear that I don't know how to write for film as well, and I'm not as prepared to do that. And what do the documents need to look like? Are they different? Is the process different? And I was so in my head about this process. And then I reminded myself that I was a 17-year-old farm girl who picked up and left my 260-acre farm with my 10 siblings and my 2 disabled parents when I was a week away from joining the military. And I landed at Stevens and I fell into film and I moved to Los Angeles, and I carefully crafted this entire career that now I've been in for 11 or 12 years. So why not? Why couldn't I write this document for this film? And why wouldn't they pick me? And why wouldn't it work out? And so I just did it, and I wrote it, and I asked people questions for feedback, and then I turned it into my team and they loved it. And I turned it into the production company and they loved it. And it just all settled on me. Don't fear anything, right? It's not fear that we should be concerned with. It's whether or not we give ourselves the opportunity to shine. The only thing that should make you afraid is whether or not you are willing to step into your own light. So step in.
Glad we're recording this.
I know, I was like, that was beautiful.
Can I say that at commencement?
Keynote speaker.
Thank you.
I'm totally with you. I mean, I'm one of the three, so I guess I'll jump in. And I kind of feel like I'm jumping in, and I'm kind of the opposite of Tennessee, where I just kind of, I was 27, I was working at a vet clinic, I always wanted to film my theater degree, and my parents would not pay for either one. And so I always kept going, I got my gen eds done, I'm gonna get a degree. And my little sister was looking at colleges at the same time, found an article about pet dorms, and there was another school, and there was Stevens. And I looked, and I kept looking for that film degree. And I saw that it was a women's college. Actually, first year of my life out of high school, went to a women's college in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is now co-ed. But I saw that Stevens had a film degree, and I applied, and I just dropped everything that I was doing. And some might call that confidence, just uproot your life, but that's what I've done my whole life. My parents lived in Ohio and Texas. I applied to NYU, ran out of Macon, Virginia, UCLA, and University of Washington, Seattle. I was like, I'm not going anywhere near home. So to me, when I came here, I had nobody in Columbia. I didn't know anybody. So that was not new to me. I went to a new high school my junior year, right? I knew that that wasn't a fear that I had anymore. I checked that off the box. But then I came here and I got my film degree, and I was doing really, really well. And then I left Stevens, and I felt like I had that moment where I didn't say why me, where I said I didn't deserve it. And so in this journey of being out of Stevens and graduating and having my film degree finally, I really struggled actually to have confidence and to be out there and work and feel like I was worthy of that. But no one here would have said she's not, everyone here made me feel really supported. So me coming back was my way of giving back that confidence to myself, but to the students that are here that might not have it, that might have had a home life that's similar to mine, where we just didn't really get that good self-esteem, and all we got was a lot of anxiety. So I just helped with the fashion show, tendency for alumni reunion, and I did some some projection mapping, and I just was like, I kept saying, I'm giving it up to God. That's what my mom always says. But those are just leaps that I feel like I can do in safe environments like Stevens, right? Like you have a network of support. And I just feel like confidence isn't about you too. It's about who you surround yourself with and who you allow in your circle to build you up and not break you down and not make you feel bad about yourself, and really that love the things that make you you. So that's a long roundabout way of saying it, but that's my confidence journey, so to speak. So it's kind of beginning anew working here as well. So I love it. I love being around with students and being part of their journey too.
And the projection thing is going to be great.
I know.
Can't wait. You have to let me know about the equipment.
Yes, I know. Listen, I've already talked to a friend who does projection mapping.
Okay.
We had a meeting yesterday or a call yesterday, so I'm on it.
And I already talked to Darrell, so we're good.
Good. Awesome. Nikki, if you want to share your story.
Yeah, I find it interesting how other people's perception of my confidence is different from my own perception of my confidence. And things that other people see as, oh, wow, I can't believe you did that, is different from what I see it as for myself. So for example, coming back from LA, my grandparents, because they realized that when I first left, they kind of forgot about me for a couple of years. It was out of sight, out of mind for a little bit. And there was so much going on back here that years go by so fast. So they had talked to me about how they were so impressed with my confidence of just going out there all on my own and getting a place to live and finding work to work and finding my way through the LA traffic and these little action items, as you're saying, Diane, that people kind of pinpoint confidence to that action. Whereas for me, the biggest growth of my confidence, I would say, would be in my Pop TV years. I was I had a fantastic supervisor, Cynthia Morrissey, for research, and she would often help train me and give me like really great insight as to things that have worked well for her. And then she would just throw me into crazy opportunities. So she would throw me into a big boardroom to give a presentation on something. She would throw me onto some speaking event. She would throw me into the mentorship program. And she would be very open to opening all those doors and then being there as a support to help if I had any questions. So that was a huge growth in my confidence and really solidifying, okay, I just have to show up and be there and be honest and true with myself and not try to sugarcoat anything, but just I'm there for a reason. And the people in the room do matter. And a lot of the confidence that I would feel, maybe not a fear, but kind of a hesitation of being confident, were specific times when I would have to speak up against the common opinion of the room. And that's what would get me fluttered the most. So one example would be, we had a show that we had a focus group on some of the key art. And some of the key art that was presented before we brought it to the focus group was a bit racially stereotypical and kind of degrading. And they really wanted to pursue that route. And I had to speak up and say, I don't feel that we should even show them these options because, and just stating my opinion that it's not respectable, in my opinion, to present this as an option that our focus group should be choosing on. And that was very much against the common grain. And they kind of had to sit back on it for a bit. They pushed against it initially, but then after some time, and then bringing in the support of my boss to also reflect the same opinion, that definitely helped.
Great. Thank you.
It's always so nice sharing space with y'all.
Right? Even in the virtual setting, this has been the biggest blessing, I think, honestly, of the whole pandemic, is just the people that were able to get into the room together virtually versus what we could do before. I mean, I know we love in-person stuff, but for things like this, it really has a bigger outreach, and I love the opportunity for that. I think we're done. And I just want to say thank you so much, Lillian Lodge Copenhagen, the Copenhagen Center for the Advancement of Women in Communication, for sharing these stories with us and workshops and allowing us the platform to do these things. We've got Rowan University and Marymount University. Marymount's a newer partner, so they're going to have a workshop that we'll also get to see. So we'll have these, and you'll be on the list, unfortunately now, or fortunately, guys, sorry. And you can find more information at our website, which is copenhagen.stevens.edu. Thank you guys again, everybody, and I hope
Thank you, Jen.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, this was wonderful. Have a beautiful Thursday, everybody.
Yeah, of course. Thank y'all. Have a good one.